It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. And the new year, it's 2025, and we are kicking off this year with amazing, amazing guests, brilliant women, and stepping into 2025 to make an impact and make a difference. So this is a woman you want to know. Jessie Gabriel. Jessie Gabriel is the founder of All Places, a champion for women. Ready, girls? Champion for your woman. She's standing for us, and a prominent voice on the role of capital ownership and control in achieving gender equality. I don't know about you, but I have been on this path for gender equality since my 20s. So I'm feeling a huge privilege in having Jessie here today. I can go on and on about her accomplishments and where she's come from and her background and the difference she's making, but I'd rather you hear this from Jessie. So thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Ivy. I'm really excited for this conversation.
So where did this all get started? Like now that we're two girls sitting over a cup of coffee, like where did this all get started?
Yeah, as I'm listening to you do the intro, I'm thinking, I hate hearing people talk about me, but I also hate talking about myself. So
why do women have that issue? Why do we all have that issue?
I don't know that it's an entirely bad thing, right? I don't know that it's an entirely bad thing. Probably the middle road is where we all want to be converging.
There.
And who doesn't love to listen, right? Who doesn't love to listen? So what can I say? The question was, why did I do this?
How did this get started? Give us a little bit of your backstory is amazing. What you have done. Currently, you're serving as an advisor to the First Women's Bank. And that's what I'm saying. And listeners, go check out the full bio of Jessie's because you'll be very impressed. Where did this get started for you?
I think to go, at risk of going too far back, I was raised in Southern California, which is where I'm sitting right now as we're recording this podcast. And I was raised by a single mother. She raised me and my older sister. So my parents were divorced. I saw my dad, some weekends. But I'm sure that had a big impact on how I've developed. My mom, whether overtly or not, really instilled us with the sense that we could do anything, right? We were limitless. We were powerful. She was and is just incredibly energetic, open, curious human being.
I love your mom already.
I love her too. So that's how we were raised. And it wasn't really until I was thinking about this the other day. When was it that I finally became aware that there is something different about the way you might be treated or about the possibilities open to you based on your gender? And I think it wasn't until I was a lawyer, maybe I'd been a lawyer a few years, and I found myself in an environment that just something about it felt a little off to me. It just didn't, it made me want to contract. I think so many of us are familiar with that feeling too, not just women are familiar with that feeling of being in an environment where you feel like, oh, there's something about you that's not welcome here, or that should be a little afraid here, or just, a little uncomfortable.
There.
And I think a lot of people have that experience working in big law. So I was in big law. I stayed. Nobody else in my family was a lawyer, but for me, financial security was very important. And these were good paying jobs, really good paying jobs. But as I got more senior and I stuck around, I became a partner. I became an equity partner. I eventually launched the investment funds practice at my last firm. And it just never felt quite right. And so at the same time this was all happening, two really significant things happened for me. One was I met a woman who was starting a private equity fund.
Okay.
So that happened, and it got me thinking. My background was in economics before law. This is such an interesting space. There are so few women. I want to learn more about this space. And then you come to understand that this industry is possibly the most powerful industry in our country. And we can talk more about that, a little bit later. And so I started building this community, and right around that same time, my father died very suddenly.
Okay.
And as anyone who's experienced a significant loss, which probably
Fortunately, too many of us have.
most of us have, it forces a perspective realignment.
Yeah. It truly makes us stop and pause and think about who we are, who we want to be, and are we showing up that way? At least, and that's from my perspective, who had a loss last year.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
It did that for me too.
Yeah.
And it made me think a lot. And maybe this is, again, because I was a lawyer and this concept of Bill Blower, it made me think a lot about my time.
Yeah.
How was I spending my time? And a week after he died, I had a dinner that had already been organized, and I went through it with a group of women who were running funds, venture capital funds, private equity funds. And it was at that dinner that some of these women said, Jessie, you should start your own firm. We want to support women. We want to give our money to women. We want to invest with women. We want to work with someone amazing. You should just do it. So that was the seed.
And it's interesting because as you say that, it's like, yes, 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 yes. I'm following, following the bouncing ball of the story. And then you get to somebody tells you should start your own firm. And if it's a drink, if it's a cocktail, a dinner table, a lunch, a cup of coffee in the morning, you say yes, 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 yes. And then you go back to your job and you keep doing what you do. And you didn't. And there's that wow moment for me, because there's so often people say, oh, you should go do this. And we're like, yeah, 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 yeah. Great idea. Talk to me in 5 years, 10 years, or whatever. And you took that action. So what was it? Like, give me a little bit of how did you start? How did you start? What were your first actions? Because so many people, I think sometimes who listen to her success story, as well as other things, say, yeah, I'm going to do that one day. I'm not quite sure where I would get started.
I felt that way too. And I wouldn't even say that it felt like, I wouldn't say that it felt completely like a choice. It almost started feeling inevitable. And this is a story and a feeling that I get a lot with our clients, because we primarily work with founder-led businesses, primarily led by women. But I think it's largely true with founders. Whether it's timing or just the right idea or whatever it is, you feel the universe kind of forcefully pushing you in that direction.
And I remember.
Can you relate to this?
I can, because and I'll tell you my image for me of like being in the ocean, and all of a sudden a big wave is coming and it pushes you,
Yes.
and you're like, I'm gonna ride it versus just swim under it. And it's like, I'm gonna ride this. This is gonna be fun. I got this. Versus, it's gonna take me down. And there, I know for me, like when I left the printing industry after 20 some odd years, and I started Slater Success, and it's like, yeah, I thought like the wave was like little, and then it got bigger and it got bigger, and it's like, damn, I'm gonna ride this. So that's the feeling as you describe it. I felt that all over, and that was really cool.
I really relate to that as a Southern California girl.
Okay, because I don't as a New Yorker, okay. But I'm thinking about the Caribbean as I talk to you, or thinking about being in Southern California as I talk to you.
I can relate to that feeling, except I wouldn't say that the full push felt like this great exhilaration, because for me, I never planned to be an entrepreneur. I was very, I grew up with a lot of financial insecurity. So I was very happy to have this job, this very reliable job, this very reliable industry, making good money. I was saving, I was putting money away. All of those things were very appealing to me. So it is an interesting question that I don't have the full answer to, as to why it was that I started feeling this compulsion to do it. But it just seemed like it stuck with me. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I started talking to people about it. I talked to my husband, who'd always told me that I should just leave and start my own thing. And I started talking to some of the women that were at these dinners. Yeah. I started talking to friends, my family, just kind of dropping this, oh, this funny thing came up at this dinner. I wonder what that would be like. I started, this may freak some people out, but I started having conversations with my father about it, right? He was
100%.
No longer on this earth, but I don't know what's happening on the other side of these conversations, but in my way, communicating with him about it. And nearly everyone I talked to, definitely everyone whose opinion I trust, everyone who knew me, said I should do it. You've got to do it. Just do it. You've got to do it.
So how did it transform from this idea? Because then many people who do that, they go and they have a practice of a small firm, a solo type of operation. But you didn't stop at that. You've built it differently.
Yeah, I wanted to build a business, but I didn't know that at the time. So, how did I start? I had these initial conversations, but the first concrete step I took was, in January of 2020, I decided, okay, this was going to be the year I'm going to do this.
Great year to
And
start.
yep, January 2020. I mean, it ended up being a great year to start a business because low overhead,
Yes.
low overhead. And what I did early on, and this actually relates to the passing of my father, is that his best friend is a coach. I've known her since I was a kid.
Right.
And we got closer after my dad died because, other than me, she was the closest person to him. And we, felt drawn to each other. And she offered to coach me as I was starting this up. And that was the first really concrete step, to set meetings with her on a regular basis and start following her advice about how to do the initial things. And I'll share
Love
with
that.
you, she was so helpful and remains my coach now. But in terms of the actual doing of it, one of the most valuable pieces of advice she gave me was start to create a list. Just put it in a spreadsheet. Start writing every single thing down that you think you need to do before this business launches. Everything. Keep putting it down, keep putting it down, keep putting it down. You prioritize, you reorganize, and then every morning, the first thing you do when you start your day before you go to work is you do one thing on that list.
Great advice. I love it. And so true. And sometimes on that list, especially, and this is why I'm thrilled you worked with somebody, because so often when we see these lists, we're picking the things that aren't actually going to move it forward. We're picking the things that are in our comfort zone versus out of our comfort zone that will move this forward faster.
That's exactly right. And I'm preaching to the choir here. Uh, I didn't even realize that until I said it. I was like, oh, right, this is so true, though.
Yeah,
The other thing is that she'd say things, and she continues to do this, says things to me that after the fact seem obvious.
of
But I
course.
needed her to see it and say it and slightly shift me back on track, or gently guide me into making my own decision
Yeah.
about what I needed to do about something. And you need someone there too to tell you, like, as a gut check, you're not crazy. You're not making a terrible mistake. This stuff is achievable. This is absolutely achievable. You are a person who can achieve it,
Yes.
and nobody knows what they're doing. So every moment that you think, I should stop doing this, I'm not the right person to do this, I can't do this, nobody knows what they're doing. It's okay.
What have you learned as a leader?
I'd say the biggest thing I've learned is, and this sounds so cliche, but it's really just to be myself.
Yeah.
That's it. And who I am, who that person is, has evolved so much since I've started this business in terms of taking risks, going through hard situations, dealing with hard feelings, dealing with challenging people. And it has, probably not coincidentally, launched me through into a lot of self-discovery practices.
Yes, it
So
does.
yes. So the person I am, to, as I say, be myself, who I am today is so much different than who I was 4 years ago. And I think I've become a much better leader in large part because I've started feeling a greater connection and acceptance of who I am. Oh, this is a quality of me. And I think I like this quality, and I'm going to go with it, and we'll see how it turns out.
There's an expression that goes, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is the greatest crash course in self-development you could ever get on
Oh, so
or you
true.
could ever take.
So true. And brutal. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really humbling, at times humiliating, but it's, but it also, I think, going through that and finding my voice more, which also allows me to be more openly vulnerable about the things that have been difficult,
Can
allows
we
people,
explore? Can I ask you about that a second?
yeah,
Because I don't think that's really, this is spoken about enough. as finding your voice more pushes us to live in a place of vulnerability until we get confident in our voice. And that takes time,
Completely agree with that. That's right.
and it's being willing to find your voice and not just copy the voices of out there or copy what everybody's saying. Oh, this is what you should say, or this sounds good, or whatever it is, but truly being authentic and true to your voice and owning that and building that confidence there, I think is a great gift in leadership.
I agree with you. That is definitely not something I knew when I started this company. But when I look back, so we have a week. I mean, you obviously know because you are you have a podcast, so you are literally putting your voice out there week after week. We have a weekly newsletter, and the first email campaign I sent out, I can't tell you how terrified I was that my words were going to be going out to this list of, I don't know, a few hundred people.
Yep.
And they were, yes, I mean, that was 4 years ago.
Right.
To a few hundred people. And that this company that I built, this wasn't an announcement saying, hey, I started my own law firm. Come work with us. It was an announcement saying, I have started my own law firm and we are explicitly focused on gender equity and capital equity. We are about something that not everybody wants to be about. Not everybody wants to hear about it. Not everybody feels good about it. And so to put that into the world, that really explicit statement of values was very difficult for me at the time. Very difficult.
And to your point, one of the things I love when I look at your website is you have something that says a business and legal strategy firm by women for women. There's not that many firms we might prefer to work with, but to put it out there that straightforward and that hardcore. So I have to ask you this.
Can I say one other?
Yes.
Yeah, let me say one other thing about that too, because this is something too where we've evolved over time. So that was our messaging at the beginning, because that's who we are.
Yeah.
We're about women. That is what we're about. But as time went on, our messaging has changed a little bit because we are also an inclusive place. We are not actually just for women. So we're changing some of our messaging there. We're about equality. We are about equality. 10% of our clients are men. They're men and they're excellent. And they want to work with us because we provide a great value proposition in that we operate differently from other law firms. Not because we're women, but because I've created the structure a little and the culture that felt right to me. So we have a different value proposition. And then we also have an overt values proposition. And those two things are appealing to women and to men. And that's been really interesting.
And that, it's interesting because her success story interviews, I would say 90% women, and those excellent men that we want and encourage to be on our show, because of the inclusivity. And the same thing in if we look at the mirror of Slater's success, my company, right? We might be X% majority women owned companies, and the male-led companies that work with us because they value the equality, the thought process, and it's different thinking than the way they think, which is an asset.
Mm-hmm. There are also a lot of qualities that are considered quote unquote feminine qualities that a lot of men find appealing as well, right? Yeah. Not all men necessarily want to be in a hyper aggressive environment. That isn't necessarily appealing to a lot of people. So to have that other option out there, right? That's part of it too. I mean, that's a lot of these words have been kind of twisted around and attached to like all kinds of things in a negative way. But the idea of creating an environment that says we're human beings, we all have value.
Yeah.
We're a warm, highly competent team.
Highly competent, smart. And I want to go into, because I want to understand more of how you have built your team based on your values and how that has been a catalyst that has worked well for you.
Mm. I think most founders you speak to, most entrepreneurs you speak to, or CEOs, I bet this is true for you and people you've spoken to, Ivy, will tell you that building and managing a team is the hardest part of their job. Also because it has the highest return. You
Yes.
have to have a great team. You have to have a great team. So what does that mean to have a great team? You need to identify people who are going to be great and passionate about what you're doing. So highly skilled, passionate about what you're doing, good humans. And then you have to create an environment that supports them, that they want to stay in, that motivates them to do their best work. And, we don't have a 100% track record I don't have a 100% track record
None of us
on
do.
hiring. I don't. But I've had some really good fortune and have an incredible team. And the way I just described it perfectly describes our team. And what I'm always working on, I think probably going to be a lifelong area of growth for me, is how to lead, how to manage, how to create firm culture that is going to attract the type of team, the type of diverse perspectives, the type of people who are going to be comfortable engaging in an open dialogue about the business, about how we're serving our clients, about how we're serving each other. And, so far, knock on wood,
And your team
it's going
is,
well. And we're actually hiring right now. So
I
hopefully
love it.
we keep it going.
I love it. What has surprised you in this journey? And I'm
So
sure
many
there's been a
things.
few. So let's pick one right now.
It's so hard. It's so hard.
Expand on that. What
Yeah.
do you find that is the challenging pieces?
It's that the skill set that I had that I was really and I'm really confident in, which is my ability to provide incredible legal advice and legal service and, all of that, is not the skill set that is most important to building a business. So I came into this, and this is so common, right? So many of us do the same thing. So many of our clients do the same thing. Was great at that. That is now what 25% of my job.
Yeah.
So you're building out. So that's what's so hard, is building out this entire additional skill set and then dealing with the fact that not everyone's going to love you. Not everyone will love you. Even when you think you're doing a great job, you're working your hardest, you couldn't do any better, not everyone is going to be a perfect fit. And I've gotten better at identifying earlier on who isn't the right fit, and then mostly amicably parting ways, because this is a partnership. Both sides we have to feel good about you. You have to feel good about us. We have to feel good about how you treat our team, how you value us. You have to feel the same way. And if that breaks down, then it's not a match.
What is one tip or piece of advice you give to women leaders that you have learned today?
Definitely the power of community. My most valuable resource in building this business has been my peer community. That and my husband and my family and my friends, right? Having that
And that's
support.
all
I couldn't do
community.
it otherwise. Right. So that part of the community, and then the community of my peers, other women business owners, other women running law firms, other
Yeah.
women running businesses completely unrelated to my business, who I can sit down with, like you, and say, "Oh my God, today sucked. Let me tell you how today sucked." And to know that on the other side, the person say, "Oh, yeah, I get it. I know that. I know that feeling. And you're fantastic. You're going to work through this. It's all going to be fine. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Carry on."
I love
And
it.
then if there's and sometimes there's a practical solution in those conversations too, right? It's like, this happened. It went really badly. How did you handle this?
Yes. And that's the importance of a strong peer community.
Yes.
And I truly believe that's one of the smartest things every person should build for themselves. Every leader should build for themselves a strong peer community, somebody you can talk to on the good and the bad, somebody you could celebrate the wins, who understands the journey of getting to that win. And as much as our families love us and support us, they don't always get all those pieces in that journey in the same way. And looking for counsel when something is not going, that peer community has great other perspectives, encouragement, also see you for your brilliance as a business leader And not because, and maybe I'm speaking a little bit for me, not because I am the wife, the mom, the BFF, or any of that. Like, oh, my friend's like, oh my God, like what you're doing is great. It's so amazing.
Mhm.
But when my peer goes, hey, you did this, this, and that, and you've worked, and I know you've been working on it for this, and you've achieved it. What are you doing to celebrate yourself? That's coming from a different place.
I agree. I agree. One of the, I'll share a conversation that's coming up for me as you're talking, Ivy. I had a situation where, I'm like hesitant to share this. I'm going to do it. We had a situation where we were working with a client and they expressed to us that they were unhappy with the work that we had done.
It's always going to happen at some
Yep.
time.
And I completely disagreed with them.
Yeah.
I knew we'd done a great job. I knew we had done a great job, an excellent job, but it still left me with this really bad feeling and this sense of doubt and this real hesitation to share that with anyone because I had this fear, oh, if I tell someone, if I tell all of Ivy's listeners that we that we had a client who wasn't happy with our work, maybe they won't want to hire us. They'll think there's something wrong with us. And so I had a conversation with my friend Leslie, who also runs a law firm I deeply respect, and I shared that with her. And she said, thank you for telling me that. The fact that that has happened to you, who I know does exceptional work, makes me feel better about the fact that that happens to me.
Touche. And it's in the sharing that there is growth. Sometimes when we share the hardest things, the growth factor is so massive. And we realize none of us are in this alone. There's the importance of the value of that peer community. And thank you for sharing that, because that's putting you sharing that out there today is a vulnerable thing. And I treasure that you trust in our community to learn from the experience and see that learning lesson. And I hope, listeners, you lean in from hearing Jessie share this to your peer community with a sense of honesty, vulnerability, and knowing that the support is there around you. And my personal tip, if it's not, change it.
That's right. And I think as you say that, Ivy, I think if there's somebody out there who hears that and thinks, oh, I don't want to work with you, they're probably terrible. Great. We're probably not a match.
We're probably not a match.
We're probably not a match.
Because I know on a daily basis, I push my clients outside their comfort zone. If they want to stay in their comfort zone, they don't need me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Growth is not in a
Yeah.
comfort zone, right? So I
No.
know part of what I do is I help my clients be the best of the best, which is going to challenge them. Not everybody wants to do that. In the same way, when we're working with an attorney in a law firm like you, and old places, we are coming to a place that's saying, I want you to see what's best for me. And I might not always like what you have to tell me, but I know you're looking at what's best for me. And it's the better leader who understands that and leans into it. And then they can make an independent decision.
That is it. They make the decision, right? They make the decision. It's their company, right? It's their life. They make the decision. And that's the other thing about part of, we've been going through this exercise of putting together our company values, which has been so interesting to get
So interesting.
the team's take on what they think our company values are. And one of the values for me is we are great listeners and advisors, but we are not dictators. We trust you. This is your business. It's your decision. We are just here to provide, based on our expertise, the information that we can to help you make an educated decision.
So on that note, Jessie, thank you for joining me here today on Her Success Story. This has been amazing and a fabulous conversation.
Thank you so much, Ivy.
And listeners, what I always say at this point, take a moment and take a breath. I believe in taking that moment and those breaths, and think about what your biggest takeaway, what your biggest aha moment, what was the point of interest in Jessie and I's conversation today? Jot that down somewhere. Don't care if it's in your phone, a piece of paper, whatever floats your boat. Then the important piece is make a decision of what you're going to do with that piece of information. How is it going to impact you and what action you're going to take? Because it's in our actions that we get to grow, make a difference, and really have value. If this was a great podcast episode for you, terrific. If share it forward with other friends and colleagues. Hit subscribe. We come into your inbox every Monday with fresh, new, wonderful interviews like Jessie. And may you be kicking off an amazing 2025 with us, and I look forward for your comments back on her success story. And let me know personally, what do you want to hear more of? We're here to do that. See you next time.